2000 EST OCOE. They say if it don't make dollars, it don't make.
Ladies, gentlemen, and genetic anomalies, what is happening? I am Nadadubi. I hope you guys are having a fantastic day. Hope you guys are having a fantastic day. I am coming to you live from the East Coast of the United States of America. It is quite chilly, of course, considering the fact that it is Christmas week. It's the week of Christmas. I hope you guys have got all your shopping done. If you have not, you still have time to do some last minute shopping. It's a mad scramble out there, but you do have some final few minutes if you guys still need to get some shopping done. Hope you guys are having a fantastic day, and if not, I hope that this stream makes your day a little bit better. Today we're going to be diving into some massive stories that a lot of people all across the country have been keeping their eyes on. But on top of that, we'll be talking about some shows in movies. I will be discussing the top seasons of television that I've seen this year, as well as the top 10 movies that I've seen this year. So stay tuned for that. In sort of an annual tradition that I'm creating on this stream. I figured it'd be something kind of nice to do. I started it last year because the whole like Oscar race or whatever kind of started around this time last year. So I was like, you know what? Why not participate? So yeah, started it last year, continuing it this year. Hopefully you guys enjoy that. Enjoyed that content. But speaking of shows and movies, actually, hold on. I'm going to cut the music, actually. Speaking of shows and movies, I literally just got back from the theaters after seeing a movie. Hold on, I just want to check something real quick. My apologies. All right, cool. I'm good. Whew. All right. So, okay, here we go. I literally just got back from the theaters. Oh, hold on. Wait a second. I got to move this over here. All right. Oh, excuse me. Oh my goodness. Yo, my apologies. Oh man. But yeah, I literally just got back from the theaters. I saw Homestead in theaters on the opening weekend. Now, I will preface this by saying a lot of people have been complaining about Homestead, the movie, being basically an intro or pilot episode for the Homestead series. A lot of people were complaining about that. A lot of people were upset. I will say, as someone who went online, did some digging, finding updates and details about the movie ever since the initial trailer came out from Angel Studios, that was not a surprise to me. It was not something that they were trying to hide. It was not something that Angel Studios was trying to hide, that there was going to be a series that was going to be part of the Homestead franchise. Now, they didn't put it in the trailer, but when they were putting out promotional materials, making posts on their Instagram account, they were very clear and upfront saying, hey, this is going to be a movie. There's going to be a series that takes place after that. The only thing they weren't clear about is when that series would be released. So I was actually very surprised to, be looking at the Angel Studios app like 2 days ago and seeing 2 episodes available of the season. I was like, oh, because I assumed that they would take some time to shoot the series and then put that out sometime in the spring for the spring television season. But no, it seems like they shot the movie and the show back to back. So full disclosure, I went into this movie with that additional context. So I was not surprised when they when they gave it an open-ended ending. Now I will say, I somewhat did expect them to do a little bit of a better job of telling a contained story inside of that one movie, because generally that's what you'll get, especially with TV movies. You'll have, your story will be told, but there will be more things that will be left behind for the next series to pick up. A good example of this is 24 Redemption. Does a really good job of telling a contained story, but there's more stuff going on with Jack Bauer that needs to be followed up continuing season, and that's what they decide to do. I was expecting more of a similar thing here, but it's more like 2 episodes back to back more than one self-contained story in a TV movie. It sort of felt like the movie could have ended maybe 30 minutes earlier, and the ending would have felt a little bit more complete. I think it's like a shame that they did not do that. But I will say, I enjoyed the movie. I think it was very fun. They did a great job with all of the tension. There are things that, if you've ever seen Civil War, this movie is very much like Civil War light. Like, if you could imagine, these movies could potentially even be happening simultaneously, because these people are out here in the Rockies. They're a little bit isolated. Like, yes, we got, people going at each other's throats, fighting and scrambling over materials and supplies. But at the end of the day, like, when something catastrophic happens in a big country like that, different things are going to be happening in different parts of the country. And I think this movie did a good job of kind of showcasing that as well. I think it's the biggest parts for me, at least the best parts for me, were the intro, like the beginning, and then like the middle part. Because in the intro, in the beginning, I think, the idea of a nuclear bomb being blasted from a dinghy that, we're getting into some spoiler territories here, but I'll say this. The way that the bomb went off, to me, was not entirely plausible, at least from the perspective of causing a lot of like casualties. I think there was a way that they could have done the initial explosion that would have been a little bit more believable, especially when it comes to the scale of the harm that it causes. It's also a little bit vague about some other details, like a bomb goes off in one place and then a power grid goes down somewhere else, and there's kind of like a talk of like, oh, maybe somebody hacked it, but that part is not necessarily clear. Now, to be fair, they didn't need to spell this all out, and it doesn't really matter how that stuff happens. But to me, I guess, as someone who's watched media from shows where they're very meticulous about spelling out how things happen, I think like 24 is an example of this, even though some of the ways they explain things are not necessarily technically possible. But Mr. Robot, especially how they describe the way that things are taking place in catastrophic events, I was sort of let down by the lack of specifics as far as how in the world we exactly got to this point. But once we were at this point, there was some stuff in this movie that I think echoed in a complementary way a couple other movies that came out this year, which were Leave the World Behind and Alex Garland's Civil War, very much in a way that they could sort of form as I guess an informal trilogy. We've got Leave the World Behind first, and then Civil War, and then we've got Homestead. I think actually this movie mirrors Alex Garland's Civil War in some very interesting ways. For example, I think embracing the aspect of, different groups fighting for power in the aftermath of such an event. So like, for example, we've got like forces moving across certain states, kind of both establishing authority, right, and taking over power and control, but also giving out supplies and things. So the idea that this movie is sort of pitching, that these groups that are kind of sweeping into these areas, it's not pitching an idea of these groups being entirely nefarious, right? They're just, establishing their dominance or whatever. But at the same time, of course, you've got groups who they just want to do what they want to do. They want to be autonomous. They don't want these people who are not the established government telling them what to do. I kind of also like that as well. One thing also about this movie is it's a Christian movie that is not overly preachy about its Christian message. Now, I will say a couple trailers came out. So there was one trailer at the end of the movie for the series. And then I think there's sort of like a mid-season trailer of sorts that basically just dropped on YouTube today. The dialogue in both of those trailers do make it seem like it's going to start being a little bit preachy, not necessarily about God being real or whatever, but the importance of having someone or something to believe in during trying times, which I think is a really good pitch that you can make. Actually, I just finished watching Fanny and Alexander, which, even though the person who made that movie comes off, at least in that movie, as someone who hates God, he actually has a very similar message. I guess he leans more towards the occult as being the thing to believe in. But the idea that you need something or someone to believe in during trying times, I think is a general enough pitch that enough audience members will be able to latch onto and support, that this movie is not going to drive people away. So some aspects of this movie may come off as a little cheesy to some folks, but it's not going to be because of the speaking about God or Jesus in this movie that people are not going to like this movie. I think if people are not going to like this movie, they might not like it because of the teen romance, which is pretty bad, in my opinion. Now, I will say that when it comes to post-apocalyptic media like this, or media where like how America functions or the world functions and runs is completely transformed, the romance is generally pretty bad. Like, I remember watching Terra Nova as well as Falling Skies, and the teen romance in both of those is not atrocious, but it's getting there. It's getting there. So, to say that this movie has terrible teen romance doesn't necessarily mark it as being any particularly worse than any standard Hollywood production. If you were going to go out and watch something secular, you weren't going to get better teen romance than this. So I don't really, mark this as something against Homestead. This just seems to be a thing where you can't make a post-apocalyptic film and have good teen romance. It just doesn't work. And considering how minor of a plot point that is, I actually don't mind it at all either. Now, I will say the one scene where it sort of takes the focus, I think is kind of long and it feels very drawn out. One thing that makes the teen romance not ruin those other works of art that I mentioned, like Falling Skies, is that those scenes are pretty short. But because Homestead is a theatrical release, they're not constrained by the 40 minutes that a typical episode of television would limit you to. So in a 2-hour-long movie, they can spend 10-15 minutes on a teen romance that's crappy, when, let's say, TNT would choose to only devote maybe 3 to 5 minutes on that same story. So it feels a little bit worse than it does just because of how long and drawn out the scene is. But again, it's no worse than anything you would see on post-apocalyptic TV show or post-apocalyptic film. Now, again, the action in this movie, I think it definitely works. Now, I will say the movie does a better job of building up the tension than delivering on the action. Not to say that the action is bad. I think there's one scene where there's a lot of gunfire. I accidentally knocked down my earbuds. There is one sequence where there's a lot of gunfire, and it should be like a high octane scenario, and you would expect to see some like wider shots of people getting hit and stuff, and people firing and shooting and stuff. But they instead choose to do some tighter camera angle shots, and I think they strategically film things in a way where it's not as violent as it could be. I think part of that is considerations for the audience. This is an Angel Studios film. A lot of these viewers are going to be Christians. They're probably not going to want to see something that's overly bloody or violent. But at the same time, for seeing that short, you can't really afford to pull punches. I say, give me more blood. Give me more people getting hit by bullets. Show some more impacts, kind of show the brutality of the scenario, because I think it relays the gravity of the situation. Because yes, even in the one scene I'm thinking of, there is a at the aftermath, it's like, okay, this is serious. People's lives are at stake. We can't keep on throwing ourselves into these scenarios. But at the same time, I feel like there should be more of a feel of danger in those scenarios than there is. Now, I will say still, it's not terribly bad. Much of the movie is about, certain people getting into the homestead and kind of like figuring out the rules of the road, right? You've got the guy who runs the homestead, Ross, who he sort of is very indecisive and, in my opinion, somewhat weak, because he's not sure exactly what he wants to do. He wants to be very merciful and gracious to the people outside the gate who want to get in and feed their families. But on the other side, he's looking at his materials, his produce, his resources, and he's like, we do not have what it takes to feed everyone who wants to get into the homestead. So he is very, very conflicted there. And that leads to him kind of being indecisive or making poor decisions, or allowing his wife to make decisions for him, when I feel like he should be the one taking charge, because it's he's the one who invited these people to come over, like the security guards. I found it interesting that even the security guards who, despite the fact that they were very much like, we need to secure perimeter, we need to shoot intruders, he was being very patient and gracious with the guy who's running the homestead, both in a respectful way of being like, okay, well, this guy owns the homestead, not me, so ultimately he's the one in charge, but also from this perspective of, maybe I'm not the right guy to lead this place, so I shouldn't be taking things over. And, being like, oh, I'll let this guy figure things out. And seeing the interplay that some of the characters have, because some of the characters are believers and some of the characters are unbelievers, but seeing the interplay of these characters fighting through moral dilemmas that have no clear answer was very fascinating to see on television, especially when Angel Studios put in a fair bit of nuance into this film. The way that people were talking, the people involved in the production, they were saying that Neil McDonough's character is some sort of villain. Now that may prove itself to be true in the series, but I think despite the music in the series, the script itself is very neutral. I think that this is a situation where there's no right or wrong answer. Like if someone is coming up to your gate and claiming to be from the government, what do? Do you do what he says and just believe everything that he has to say, or do you say leave, and if you don't leave, I'm gonna shoot you down? What do you do? Or what do you do if you have 5 hungry families at your gate and you don't think that you have the food to feed them sustainably for several months? What do? Do you leave them out there to starve, or do you invite them in? Moral dilemma. I personally don't think that there's a right or wrong answer to those questions. I think the movie does, and that's why it pitches Neil McDonough's character as a villain. But I personally disagree, and I appreciate the story for having the nuance to be like, you know what, this person might be right or this person might be wrong, even if I disagree with the viewpoint of the people who made the movie. So all in all, I think this movie is fine. I on Letterboxd, I gave it a 3.5 stars. A lot of people were mad about the fact that this led into a series. I already knew that it was going to lead into a series, so I thought that was fine. But I mean, is it better than the other 2 post-apocalyptic films that I saw this year? Leave the World Behind and Alex Garland's Civil War? I would say no, but I will give credit to Angel Studios because I think it's not that far behind Leave the World Behind. I think even though the scenarios in all 3 of those movies were pretty plausible, I think Leave the World Behind's scenario was slightly less plausible than the other 2 movies. I think that Homestead was almost as plausible as Alex Garland's Civil War. So because of that, I have to give it marks for that. Very clearly, the people who made this movie kind of were looking at the landscape and being like, oh, I could see how in this certain isolated area, things could turn out this way in a disaster scenario. So all around, I think a fair movie, not a crazy great movie, not an excellent movie, but it's good. I think it's more than serviceable. It should be enjoyable for a lot of people in the audience. Now, some people might not like it. I think that the dialogue for one of the characters is extremely cheesy, but hey, get enough Christians around in a group and you're going to have someone who talks like that. So, it makes the world feel lived in. It makes the world feel believable. I think. No knock on Christians, by the way, but we just have our own Christianese in the way that we speak that, a lot of people in the secular world don't really speak that way. So it's going to throw a lot of non-Christian viewers off when they go watch this movie and be like, why is this person speaking like she's a Lord of the Rings character? Like, I think if you're a Christian watching this movie, because of that, you're not going to have as difficult of a time watching this movie as if you were an unbeliever who's not familiar with the way that Christians put things sometimes. But still, in general, I think the movie's fine. I wish it ended a little bit earlier, just that it had a more... its ending felt a little bit more final, but still fine movie. I recommend it if you don't have any other movies to watch or you've been hankering for some post-apocalyptic fun in your theater going experience. By the way, if you've seen this movie, let me know in the comment section what you guys thought of it. I'd like to hear your guys' thoughts. I think a lot of the reception online is skewed. A lot of people are giving it like 1 out of 5s or half stars out of 5s, specifically because they're disappointed but by the fact that there's a series coming out. But regardless of that, what do you guys think of the movie? I'd like to hear your guys' thoughts. always looking to consume more Christian entertainment and support more Christian media. This is just one film along that journey. So yeah, glad to put out this review. Very interested to hear your thoughts. Oh, in the chat we have the Angry Canadian here. Actually, hold on, wait. Angry Canadian, put a 1 in the chat if you would like to hop on the stream, because I actually did want you on the stream to talk about something. And if you're here, you know, there's no time like the present to have you on. I would love to hear your thoughts on the whole Justin Trudeau situation in Canada. Let's see. Okay, hold on. Yeah, because we've got, and by the way, I'm gonna react to a video. It's about 5 or 6 minutes long. So if you need time to get ready, like if you want to hop onto the stream, but you need time to get ready, whatever, just let me know in the chat when you're ready. When I finish reacting to this stream, or to this video, then you can hop on and we'll talk about this.
Canadian.
But hold on, here we go. So I heard some reports that Justin Trudeau's grip on power might be loosening. Now, I did hear some reports that, Canada had trouble passing some bills or whatever in their Congress, and people were saying, oh, well, because of the lack of leadership from Justin Trudeau, we need to get this guy replaced. I think some people are calling for an early election to get Trudeau ousted. This might lead to Pierre Poilievre, I think is how you say his name. Correct me if I'm wrong. Becoming the next Prime Minister of Canada. Very interested to see what lies in the future of Canadian politics. Now, I'm going to react to this short video here. This is from Fox News. This is on Outnumbered. And then after that, I'm going to have on the Angry Canadian to give us more in-depth analysis of what's happening, because he's actually Canadian, guys. So it'll be interesting to hear what he has to say. But here, this is from Fox News. This is from Outnumbered, them talking about the situation.
Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is not dancing. His spat with President-elect Donald Trump is now causing some political problems for his own country, the entire country. Trump threatened Canada with tariffs if they did not do something to stop the flow of illegal immigrants from the northern border. Trudeau then flew to Mar-a-Lago.
What illegal immigrants? What are you talking about? We don't have illegal immigrants coming into America from Canada. I don't know. And honestly, like, if we're getting illegal immigrants from Canada, let them come. They're probably like the Nelk Boys or Steven Crowder or Ted Cruz or Justin Bieber or Drake or something. Like, come on. Are we really scared of Canadian illegal immigrants?
You remember that was a couple of weeks ago. He sat at the dinner table with Trump. And during that conversation, Trump reportedly told Trudeau that if Canada's economy cannot survive without ripping off the United States, maybe Canada should become the 51st state and Trudeau should be governor.
How does Canada rip off America again? I'm a little bit confused. All I know about the Canadian economy in comparison to America's economy is that Canada's dollar is ridiculously inflated in comparison to the US dollar. That's all I know. So if they're ripping off America, they're doing a bad job of it, which I guess maybe they make sense because it's Canada, but still.
Trump later doubled down on the nickname Governor Trudeau in a social media post. In an attempt to punch back, Justin Trudeau instead insulted American voters, implying that we are sexist.
We were supposed to be.
Wait, what? We're sexist? Wait, is Justin Trudeau a woman? I'm a little bit confused here. What's what's the tack here? I don't get this. What?
Implying that
What?
we are sexist.
We were supposed to be on a steady, if difficult sometimes, march towards progress. And yet, just a few weeks ago, the United States voted for a second time to not elect its first woman president.
Absolutely based. I feel like when it comes to why is it so hard when you're picking a president the first thing you shouldn't be examining are the genitals. Pick the person based on the policies. Like, that's just common sense to me, but I don't know.
Voted for a second time to not elect its first woman president. Everywhere, women's rights and women's progress is under attack, overtly and subtly. But I want you to know that I am, and always will be, a proud feminist. You will always have an ally in me and in my government.
Okay, is he a real ally, though? Because he's not transitioning.
Of course, you may have to find him at his house because he may not be the prime minister for very long, but let's watch and see. Now, Trump's America First policies are putting Trudeau's role as prime minister in jeopardy. Trudeau's finance minister resigned over differences over how to confront Donald Trump. And now Trudeau is reportedly weighing a resignation for himself. You looked at the monitor.
Whoa, I didn't know that he was actually going to resign. I thought this was pressure that people were putting on him that he actually was not going to deliver on. I would be surprised if he resigned. Also, in Canadian, I see you in the chat. As soon as I finish reacting to this video, we'll tap into you for some analysis on this following the story.
Well, the quote of Trudeau essentially calling Americans feminists for voting for Donald Trump over Kamala Harris is like file that under grasping at straws for a male politician who was asking for people to vote for him. To say that is irony at its best. According to a CNN article on this very subject, more Canadians view Donald Trump favorably than they do Justin Trudeau. Ooh. And I really do think that COVID was the beginning of the end for him. That country was locked down for literally years. If you thought California had it bad, Canada was California on steroids.
Yes, bro. They were trampling their citizens with horses because they were standing outside, I think, and like blocking the road. Now, I will say, like, I think that, were they blocking the road? I can't remember if they were blocking the road, but like these people were protesting, standing outside. They were trampling their own citizens with horses. Not even the Brits do that. I mean, to be fair, the only weapons that the British military have are like rubber batons, but still. That's pretty bad. I think they were selling the military. They were sending the military to churches for having services, like in public during COVID. Absolutely ridiculous.
Freedom Caucus. There was recently a social.
The trucks.
Yep.
The trucks were everything. That's everything changed.
And if you think about what the Freedom Convoy was about, the trucker protest, it was because there was a policy where they had to get vaccinated, even though they're truckers in their own bed of their truck. If there is any more solo work effort than being a trucker, there is nothing other than that. So there's also a video that recently went viral where there was a steel worker saying, "You are doing nothing for this country right now." So he has a lot of political issues to contend with. And I don't think that Donald Trump calling him that he could be the governor of the 51st state could be his undoing, but it certainly does not help his cause.
Also, I don't like the joke. Now, I will say some people are... They're feigning ignorance when they act like Donald Trump is being, serious in saying that, Canada should become a state or something. That's not what Donald Trump is calling for. But I will say it's a stupid joke. Trump needs to stop saying stupid things. I know that sort of sounds like it's telling a 2D cartoon to become three-dimensional, but Trump says too many things that are stupid. He needs to stop. And then we've got these cringy people on Fox News pretending that the joke is funny. Like, no. Call it like it is. It's a dumb joke. It's bad. It's stupid. It doesn't work. The guy needs to stop.
Emily.
Yeah, you guys, Justin Trudeau to me is sort of like, I was trying to think of how to explain it. Like he's like the facsimile of Gavin Newsom, sort of like an even lesser effective. And what I mean by that is that, he's come in, he's not his father, first of all. So he assumed the position, though, likely on the heels of his father's legacy there. And then he puts himself out there as being this totally radically progressive and for the people prime minister when we know that he's worn brown face multiple times. We know that he continues subjugating Indigenous peoples there in Canada, even though he claims to pretend to be on everyone's side that he virtue signals for, but his policies are the exact opposite.
Which is crazy.
So no wonder everyone in Canada feels deep disdain for him and also deep frustration at the fact that this guy is still calling the shots. Of course, they want President Trump and prefer and respect him more because it's the policies that speak for themselves. So he can go ahead and try to shame us and try to call us names. But the reality is that his reign of power there is massively fragile. And when you pull back the cloak of what indeed he has accomplished in Canada, it is nothing that has brought Canadians any form of progression whatsoever. I hold no respect for that.
Yeah, you know,
I mean, it's regression, right? Regression into fascism is basically what Justin Trudeau has given Canada.
During those lockdowns during COVID, we were still learning, you know, how dangerous that was going to be, and how every time you left your house and you got exposed and took it back and you were locked in.
Right. But we knew, like, I think like a month or 2 months into it, that people had, like, the general population had like somewhere between 95 and 99% survival rate. Right? This thing had a mortality rate of 5%. And people were still acting like it was the end of the world. It was still acting like, you're threatening lives if you go outside. For something with a 1% mortality rate. Absolutely bonkers. So you can't give any kudos to the Canadian government by saying, oh, well, we didn't know how deadly it was going to be. We were still figuring this thing out. Yeah, well, we figured out that it's not deadly. We figured out that, you would probably need to roll a dice hundreds of times before you would get the same shot of getting a particular result of hold on, now that's a bad analogy, but you know what I mean. It's you probably had a better shot of winning the lottery or winning a gambling game at a casino than contracting COVID, or than getting sick of COVID and dying. It is just bizarre. Don't give credit to Canada for that.
Everybody in the household got COVID. We learned so much, right? But I wondered politically if that also didn't work for him, because his citizens, I'm certain, would like to have been someplace else.
Yeah.
And so he basically locked them in.
Hey, look, he's a socialist. And I think when he started to lose the country was really over the truckers who were staying in their cab saying, if I don't get out of my cab, if I'm just driving across the border and they unload everything from the back of I drop my trailer, I don't even get out of the cab. The workers do all that. Can I not have to be vaccinated? And he said, no, that's what dictators and tyrants do. They don't look at logic.
By the way, these same vaccines, like, people were mad at saying, like, oh, you're anti-vax, but for not wanting to take the vaccines. Well, you know what? Some vaccines got rolled back and pulled. The FDA, I think, said, oh, no, you can't take this certain vaccine anymore. I think that there's some sort of issue here. There were links of multiple vaccines, I believe, to heart conditions. We saw certain anecdotal cases of completely healthy people, right? All of a sudden, having all these lengthy, multi-foot-long blood clots all in their bloodstreams. Oh, what was that about? Oh, well, that was actually proven, I believe, in a study, demonstrated in a study to be true. So a lot of these people who were skeptical were proven to be right. Now, not all of them, right? Like, I think the ivermectin thing, there was a study that recently came out that sort of debunked that. I still think that in certain rare situations that did help some people. But what happened was people used an alternate way to treat COVID-19, and it was an edge case, but then they extrapolated that to be like, oh, well, I should use this instead of getting vaccinated, in a way that I think was unscientific and unhelpful. The study sort of rebuts that approach. So
They say this is what you're going to do. You notice they just banned a bunch of guns the other day in Canada. I think that is a perfect example of why he thinks he's leaving.
Yeah.
Because when you start doing these things at the very end, he's lost the people. You've got major problems there with taxes. You have major problems there with taxing people that make money. And you've got problems now with oil and gas issues with him. I think he's gone.
Oh, that's the whole economy. Well, Emily mentioned Gavin Newsom. Maybe he'll go to California. It's a sanctuary
They can be
state.
bros.
He likes being locked down.
And it's not just the Minister of Finance that has resigned. It's also the Deputy Prime Minister as well. Look, Trudeau started with something like a 63% approval rating.
I will say that Trudeau probably could go to Canada, and I wouldn't be shocked if he won the race for Canadian governor. And actually, the Democrats might want him, right? Because Gavin Newsom is very likely going to run for president in 2028. I actually believe that he should because he has a shot to win. Not that I want him to be president of the United States, but I think that it's a wise political move for the Democratic Party to pick him. It's a good speaker, smooth speaker. He could fool a lot of people, in my opinion. But another thing, too, that a lot of people don't factor in is that Democrats love rulers of other countries that the people hate, right? So Democrats probably love Justin Trudeau, right? Well, the people hate him. It's kind of very similar to how Democrats are rallying around Jacinda Ardern, despite the fact that she was ousted because of her extremely draconian and fascist and authoritarian approach to handling COVID-19. She was leagues worse than the Justin Trudeau. We don't even want to get into all that right now. So if Democrats could rally around Jacinda Ardern, they can rally around Justin Trudeau. I know they're joking and being a little facetious, maybe being slightly bad faith there, but I actually think that's not a bad idea for them to be like, hey, you know, maybe Trudeau should actually go to California because he does have a future in American politics if he wants it.
Now it's below 30%.
Ooh, can we just go back to who said it's lower than Trump? Like, let's just have a moment and enjoy that for a second.
But I just want to point out, it's not just COVID and the rise of tyranny that is causing and creating this populism across the world and here in the United States as well. It's also mass immigration and the loss of sovereignty and nations wanting to put their country first, which America first here in the United States. And what Donald Trump understands is a lot of Republicans like George W. Bush previously wanted to export democracy through nation building and things like that, and projecting these false values that we claim to have as America, but we don't have them when Joe Biden's trying to jail a political opponent or kick Donald Trump off the ballot. But what Donald Trump understands is the way you spread democracy.
We do actually get that with Joe Biden in propping up Israel and propping up Ukraine. You know, that's the whole point of it, right? Is because it's like, oh, well, Hamas and the Islamists are worse than Israel, so we have to protect Israel. Right? Israel is our greatest ally because they are a democracy in the Middle East. That's the logic there, I think. And then we've got, Ukraine. Ukraine is better than Russia. Zelensky is better than Putin, so we've got to defend Ukraine. When the only thing that Ukraine is doing for us is, like Tim Scott said, depleting, using the blood of Ukrainian. I think they're using their own blood, the blood of the Ukrainian soldiers, to deplete the Russian military, which, like, in itself is kind of gross. But, you know, the idea that Bush was unique in world democracy or nation building or whatever, in a way that Biden is not, is a little bit ridiculous. I will say that Biden has sort of backtracked on that a little bit, right? Like he did the disastrous pull out of Afghanistan, but still, he still does that. And the Angry Canadian says, yo, buddy, we're being streamed. Dude, I'm almost finished. I have 30 seconds left in this video. I'm trying to make sure that I do a full reaction to this video before we hop onto you, but we will be with you in mere moments.
In the way you...
Oh, Emily.
Oh, yeah, my goodness. Oops, did not mean to do
previously
that.
wanted to export democracy through nation building and things like that, and projecting these false values that we claim to have as America, but we don't have them when Joe Biden's trying to jail a political opponent or kick Donald Trump off the ballot. But what Donald Trump understands is the way you spread democracy and the way you spread populism is fixing your own country first, right? If you haven't cut your grass in over a month and your shutters are falling off, you can't tell your neighbor to get their house in order, right? You've got to clean up yours first.
Right,
and
that's
so
true.
I think with Donald Trump and fixing our nation over the next 4 years, we'll see an increase in populism and democracy and freedom throughout the rest of the world as well.
Hey everyone, I'm Emily Campagna.
Interesting. Very fascinating video. I would like to talk to someone who's actually from Canada to kind of get a deeper understanding of what's happening. But very interesting segment from Fox News. It'll be interesting to see if Justin Trudeau actually ends up resigning. Oh, hold on. Wait a second. What's this? I should file a copyright strike on this dude. Wait, hold on. What's happening here?
Tell your neighbor to get their house in order.
This dude is streaming my content.
Right,
that's true.
What's
going on? No, I'm just kidding.
Nation over the next 4 years, we'll see an increase in populism and democracy and freedom throughout.
So that's the Angry Canadian. I'm going to bring him on to the stream. We're going to be talking about Canadian politics. He is a Canadian streamer, Canadian broadcaster. He makes content, YTPs on YouTube. He is, he's, I think, on the right, probably to the right of me, actually, and has a good handle on what's actually going on with Canadian politics. So here he is, official Mike, also known as the Angry Canadian. All right, hold on. Let me get this working here. Let me pull this up. I don't know if you have a camera or not. Hello? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Yep.
Hey, do you have a camera or something?
I don't really show my face on YouTube, by the way.
Oh, okay.
Because all the YTPs and stuff they can make me say a bunch of egregious bullshit. I'm gonna test. I do have like a mask I brought that looks like Fresh Cut Slims, so I can maybe get that ready. You
don't have to if you don't want to. It sounds like it'd be more trouble than it's worth. So we could just do the faceless version of whatever. But
I was reacting to the videos too, and I was like, spoiler alert, Trudeau ain't gonna resign. He has narcissistic personality disorder.
Yeah, so I wanted to ask you about that. Okay, so we know that Justin Trudeau is extremely unpopular. At least I understand that. I don't understand Canadian politics as well as you do, but I at least get the impression. Yes, I get the impression he's extremely unpopular, and there are calls for Trudeau to resign. Now, I also understand that Canada has regularly scheduled elections, so he's going to be up for election anyways. What does Trudeau gain by deciding to resign if he decides to do so? Like, is there any sort of pressure, like way that people can pressure Trudeau to resign other than shouting at him on the street? Because, if you're an elected official, but, there's no way for people to like actually resist you, then how are you going to get people to, how are you going to get someone like that to step down?
You really can't, unless you get him really drunk and then just like make him sign a document while he's drunk, like have him have like shots of tequila or beer. Because Trudeau, he's not a feminist. Because he's fired every female that's said stuff against him, even Christina Freeland.
Well, that's not a sexist thing. That's probably just a fascism thing.
He even elbowed one of them in the face by accident.
Well, that's an accident. Purpose. But I mean, that's probably more of a fascism thing than a sexism thing. I wouldn't.
He's also groped a reporter who is a female.
Okay, that's sexist. Does he grope men, actually? If he gropes men, it's fine. It's not sexist.
No, it was a woman.
Oh,
it was a female reporter. There is an article about it. This was in the mid-2000s.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yikes.
Yeah.
So you don't think that he's going to resign?
He's way too narcissistic. His head, as I said this in a diss on him, his head is so full of shit that that's the reason why his wife left him. It's no wonder why his wife left him.
Or it could be the groping.
Or it could be the fact that he's married to Xi Jinping, the dictator of China.
I guess I have heard rumors that he's bisexual, but I wouldn't get into all that.
Yeah. We all know Trudeau's a piece of shit anyway, so even if he does come out and use that as a ploy to help gain votes, it wouldn't really work because we all hate him anyways, even if he was, if he came out.
Interesting. Now,
not even Trump takes him seriously.
Yeah, that also is true. But I did have a question because I heard that there was some sort of thing going on in the Canadian House of Congress of Representatives or whatever your equivalent is of that over there, where people were having trouble passing something and people were blaming that on Trudeau's inability to lead as a party or inability to perform as a party leader. Can you kind of dive into what that was? Because I never went into all of that in depth on my own.
Yeah, so what happens is that he's being voted non-confidence, so all the because he's a minority party, so if all the parties are voting non-confidence, he basically, there's a majority that are saying he shouldn't be leading, and then they'll call a re-election because all the parties are going against him now. Like the Bloc are going against him, who are Quebec nationalist. The NDP are finally, because the leader of the NDP finally grew a pair. And this is gonna be highlighted in Welcome to China to 4 All in the Family, and there's gonna be a long orgy scene between Trudeau, Singh, Blanchette, and Canada Post CEO and CEO of Global CTV and stuff in the House of Commons.
Well, okay, if that's the case, I might not react to that. That sounds a little edgy.
Yeah.
That's a plug for your channel. If you want to see that, go watch. Watch the
Trudeau's gonna
Canadians
pull out
channel.
his phone in the YTP, and he's gonna say, "Mr. Speaker," has a devious smile, pulls out his phone. "I need to record for my OnlyFans."
Oh my
And
goodness.
that's when he. Hey, I guess he's got to make money elsewhere because he can't get a job elsewhere because, I mean, he can't teach because allegedly he dated a high school kid.
Well, like I said, well, he could do that in a blue state.
Daddy paid
But
hush money.
he could do that in a blue state. But I would say that, like, he probably could be governor of California. I think that they would love
Trump
him there.
isn't going to annex Canada. I think Trump is half joking, half serious.
He's not serious at all. I don't think he's serious at all.
Yeah.
Dude. No, he's more serious about buying Greenland than annexing China.
Like I could
or
tell
Canada.
he was joking because, first off, you know how much money it costs to annex Alaska.
Yeah, but it's such a bad joke. Why make it? It's so dumb. It's so stupid. Like Trump says these things.
Trump.
I'm like, what are you doing? And that's one of those things where it's like,
I wouldn't be against the idea of Trump annexing Canada.
well, of course you would. You're a right winger. But I just don't think it's smart. I don't think it makes sense. It's a waste of our time. It's a distraction. We have issues here at home that we need to fix, and we're trying to take over another country. Like that's ridiculous.
Well, maybe
and also
if he annexes Alberta and stuff like that, because he invited Danielle Smith to the inauguration. He invited the Alberta premier.
True,
to the inauguration, but didn't invite Trudeau.
But I'll also say this: you guys in Canada, you're gonna fix whatever you've got going on. I think, unless some China infiltrator goes and breaks your knees or whatever. But
or Toronto and Montreal still suck Trudeau's dick.
Yeah,
all 3 inches of it.
Well, thanks for telling me that, and I'm visualizing it. I appreciate that.
Trust me, it's the same as Hitler's penis size.
Dude.
There's an article that suggested that Hitler had a micro dick.
Dude, I don't want to think about these things. You must think I'm gay, but I promise I'm not. I don't want to be picturing these things in my brain. I don't want to be picturing these things in my brain. But yeah. So with this no confidence vote, kind of trying to put this back on track here.
Yeah.
What is the likelihood? Do you think that this no confidence vote is something that is put into place within the next week or two?
It's not, because Parliament has shut down for the holidays.
Well, I hear that there's Boxing Day, which ends by the time this segment goes out as its own video. It'd probably be Boxing Day within a day or two. So I think by next week, right?
It's gonna be till January. It's like they're going on long vacation. Canada government is as efficient as a snail doing construction work.
Oh, so Boxing Day is multiple days.
Yeah, but they're not. They're still on holiday. They're on extended holiday.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. And people are just not. Honestly, I'm fed up with the Trudeau dictatorship, as you can see.
Very clearly.
Because
you've been fed up for years.
Yeah, and he's made the country go to shit and go to hell because I've literally been making jokes about him in the Welcome to China parody because, I mean, he deserves it a lot of the time.
Yeah. I mean, and kind of from that perspective, because you're Canadian, I'm not. How has the Trudeau regime affected you specifically?
Well, it's hard to get jobs because a lot of jobs in the job market would rather hire immigrants than hire good old Canadians for the jobs because the temporary foreign workers program is way too generous. And I've actually written an email to my MP about it too. I've actually and I've even said to him explicitly that as a person in the STEM field, like the science, technology, medicine, I actually feel I might leave Canada for better work elsewhere if the jobs don't get better. And I'm asking if the Conservatives, Pierre, and you said Pierre Poilievre's name wrong. It's Poilievre, not
Poilievre.
Whatever you said.
Polivier.
It's French. Yeah, it's French. So, I asked him if the Conservatives are elected, would they make it so that the temporary foreign worker program restricts non-essential or non-niche jobs, is what I should say, from hiring foreign workers, but allowing the niche jobs to have that, as well as cutting to certain areas so that it's not seen as very beneficial to or incentive to hire foreign workers so that businesses don't exploit it. And I said explicitly to him too that the jobs, that there's hundreds of applications on Indeed for one of these non-niche jobs, and yet they're not hiring. Perhaps they're using it to fabricate evidence or fabricate information to the boards so that they can get a foreign worker in and falsely claim they can't find workers when they've never even interviewed any of them.
Wait, so how would a fake listing help them do that? I'm a little bit confused about that.
Because the way the system works is when you ask, or when they tell you to look for Canadians first, they'll post a job and they just choose not to hire people.
But isn't that their fault?
That, or they're maybe doing something illegal, which would technically this is illegal because they loopholed the system but exploited it to a point where they actually shouldn't have.
Right.
And I'm calling for the government to fix that loophole so that like it's harder for them to actually hire foreign workers because it takes away Canadian jobs.
Yeah, and one thing that was very interesting too, you sent me a video that I reacted to on the stream a while ago about how there's overcrowding in a lot of the places where these immigrants are living too. So, and this is one thing I don't like about a lot the way that these Democrats or left wingers want to import these left wing voters to keep themselves in power and also provide themselves with a social underclass to work at like low wages or whatever. Is that a lot of times the living conditions that they're in not particularly great because in some cases they have to either kind of like what's going on in Canada. Live in overcrowded areas, or that they settle for subpar living conditions or even wage conditions because of their status. Both of those are bad things. And I think it's just like, they're like, oh, come over here and live in squalor. Like, I don't like that at all. I wish that, if they invited people, they would invite people to, actually become real citizens so that then they can fully participate. But I think the thing that they don't like about that though is that it takes a longer time to do. So then they get less people, and then they've imported less voters, and that it's a whole thing.
Yeah, and that's what one of the things too is that literally I would say that if you're an illegal, if you're an illegal immigrant, the only punishment for an illegal immigrant is they're blacklisted from the country, so they can never come into the country ever. And
do they enforce that?
Forcibly pardon me? No, that's how it should be.
Oh, yes.
If they come in illegally, they should be faced with forced deportation against their will, regardless. They're supposed to go back to the country. If not, I'll even authorize going as far as drugging them so they can be sedated to go on a mandatory flight back.
Bro, what? Yo, no, that's insane, dude. No,
comply and are so steadfast.
Tase them, knock them out, subdue them. But you want to roofie illegals? That's insane.
And then and to top it off, they're blacklisted from the country. You know what? No, you want to know the best way to roofie them is?
What?
Gravel.
What?
There's a medicine that's used, like, when you have stomach problems.
You want to feed illegal immigrants gravel?
No, not the gravel like from the road. There's a medicine that, when you have like an upset stomach and you're throwing up, and there's a medicine called Gravol.
Oh. You should have said it correctly if that's what you meant.
I'm talking about the Gravol. Because Gravol is, you can easily buy it from any store, and then you just give them a pill or two of it, and they're like woozy and doze off because one of the side effects of Gravol is you're sleepy. You're sleepy.
No, I don't support that. I think one issue with it too is that something like that you gotta hold somebody down and like force feed it to them.
That's a last resort.
Just tase them, whatever. You don't have to look. You don't have to roofie someone to put them in jail. So why should you have to roofie someone to throw them across the border? You don't. I think that's a little overboard and extreme.
Actually, maybe not. Maybe what we should do is drop them to the other side of the border, but on the other side of their country, so they have to run
Alaska?
all the way.
No.
Yeah.
No. I'm sorry. I'm American. Also, what illegal immigrants are coming from Alaska into Canada? I just don't think that's happening.
We'll drop them off in New York. How's that? Drop them off or California.
Well, wait, hold on. Wait a second. These immigrants are coming from like India, right? They're not like crossing the border per se.
And we'll deport them into India in the middle of nowhere in India. We'll drop them in the middle of the Himalayas in India.
Yes. And by the way, there's some people when it comes to proposals like that, they'll be like, "Oh, what if the country doesn't take them back?"
If they don't take them back,
give them that option. Don't give them that option. Pick an airspace. Pick a runway. Be like, we will be here to drop off your former citizens. Fly the plane there. Land it. Open the door. I think that's just what you do. Yeah. Kick them off, and then fly away.
Then just
that's
take
what
off
you do
as fast as you can.
Yes.
Shut the doors
and put in the military so that they can't be stopped. You can't be sending people into the country. Especially if you as a government, you're like, we don't want these people here. It's one thing if they're invited, right? But if the country keeps on sending people back to your country, even after you've been like, we're not accepting people anymore, you have the right to send them back, right?
Have you seen what Poland is doing when people are trying to get through their walls?
No, I have not.
They're spraying them with like jets of water.
Oh, really? Oh man, just like the Black Americans.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, that's a bit dark. Hey, you want to hear a dark joke?
Sure. I just said one. So.
Why did Hitler hire the Palestinian protesters?
Because they hate Jews too.
But they'll also incite violence to Jews as well.
I was close.
You want to hear even darker one?
What?
Who are the fastest readers?
I don't know.
9/11 victims. 89 stories in 10 seconds.
Okay, is this all you had to say?
No. But
this is getting a little ridiculous. We're getting off the rails here.
Steve Buscemi. No, this is a natural fact. Steve Buscemi literally came out of firefighting retirement to actually volunteer to help for the, and he didn't do it out of publicity. Steve Buscemi actually went back to.
I didn't ask you on the stream to talk about Steve Buscemi, okay?
No, but he was a firefighter and he was helping the 9/11 thing.
What does that have to do with Canada?
Well,
what did you want to talk about Canadian politics?
Can Trump annex Alberta? Because I know he's inviting the premier of Alberta to his inauguration.
I don't want him to annex Alberta. I don't. Do we want another blue state? Oh, Azam Iqbal said your breath stinks. Actually, I agree. That's because I was just at a movie theater. I got ice cream, and sugar in your breath makes sugar in your mouth after a while. After a few hours, makes your breath stink. I was actually thinking about consuming some of this, but I was like, you know what? No one's in this room with me smelling my stinky breath. Also, I'm live streaming, right? Chewing gum, is that really going to make my breath smell better? Yeah. But I will say, Azam Iqbal, your breath probably stinks worse. People, when they make statements like that, they are wanting to distract from their own circumstances. They want to feel better about themselves. Someone started to put you down, they probably feel bad about themselves. So similarly here, Azam Iqbal, I'm live. I don't have the luxury of being able to do this, but you do. So I would encourage you to go brush your teeth because you're just here in a YouTube chat, right? And I'm here on a live stream. I don't have the luxury of being able to brush my teeth, but you do. So do yourself a favor.
And also, I was also telling him, like, go put on deodorant too. It's cheaper than beer.
Oh, you're right. It is.
You could literally go to a dollar store and buy like a deodorant, a stick of deodorant for like $2.
Yeah.
You could like literally, if you can afford booze, there's no excuse why you can't put on deodorant. Like,
true.
Literally, we should make deodorant mandatory.
True. But getting back to the topic at hand, because I do want to reel this conversation back in. One thing about the whole Canada situation as well is, so you're saying that people in the parliament are calling for a vote of no confidence, right? Yep. Which would oust Justin Trudeau, kicking into high gear an election before its scheduled time. is this sort of thing unprecedented? Like, how long would Canadians ordinarily have to wait in order to get another election? It's 2024 right now. I don't know if you guys do elections every 2 years, 4 years, 6 years. October of next year?
It would have been in October in 2025. If they had one now, it would be basically early 2025.
Okay. So what would be, like, you know what? Actually, I understand, because, you know, if Justin Trudeau is sort of like destroying your country, then I think it would make sense to be like, you know what, we want to get this clown out now rather than waiting several more months and allowing him to do further damage. So that actually does make sense. But is this sort of thing unprecedented? Like, is this thing usually not happen in the history of Canadian politics?
Lots of things haven't happened. First off, Jagmeet Singh was the reason why, the leader of the NDP was the reason why the Liberals were on for so long, because he wanted his goddamn pension, which was like $2 million a year for like his years of time. Interesting.
So it's more like the catalysts to this are unprecedented than having a vote of no confidence. Like votes of no confidence are pretty normal.
Now he has the pension, so he's voting non-confidence because he's guaranteed his pension, or almost like that, unless Pierre decides otherwise.
Oh, that's ridiculous. See, look, I just want to see people vote based on their principles, not their alignments or what they're going to get. But, you know, hey, you know what? Honestly, you know, that's going to lead to better change in Canadian politics. So, you know, is that like the worst thing in the world that it's shifting in this direction?
It's because Jagmeet finally got his pension, so that's why he decided, you know what, I'm done. Even though he's criticized the Liberals so many times and still decided to prop him up. And I was even joking about him sucking Trudeau's dick a lot of the time too, and that's why he's still in power. And I guess the dick went sour, and so he's finally saying no.
Well, you know, we all can't be as gay as you.
I'm not.
Well,
I'm not. Trudeau's the gay one.
You're the one who keeps talking about these acts. I mean, straight people don't bring up stuff like that often. I'm just saying.
Trust me, I know Canadian politics. It's like seriously, I have enough evidence that I could sue the Canadian government for tax embezzlement. Like, they've embezzled Canadian taxes.
Interesting. Well, I bet you're not the only one. I hear a lot of stuff about Canadian corruption here and there.
You know, Tom Clark, the guy, Trudeau bought a home for him in New York on Billionaires Row with taxpayer funds.
Oh yes, I have a video about that. That was crazy.
Yeah. I'm like, why don't we sue the government for that? Like, that is textbook embezzlement. Let's even search up tell me that this isn't the textbook definition of embezzlement.
It's ridiculous. Not that he didn't need a home. It sounded like from the description of the article, he needed a home, like a residence in the United States to network and meet with Americans. But it doesn't need to be a penthouse. You know,
theft or misappropriation of funds placed in one's trust or belonging to one's employer. Does that not sound like that Trudeau embezzled taxpayer money for his friend?
It does. It does.
Like, that's why we should make a diss track on him and say it's called Crooked Embezzler. That's what the song's called, Crooked Embezzler.
I'm sorry, but like your line of reasoning of being like, oh, you know, all this corruption is so awful, it's so bad. Trudeau is doing all these terrible things. He's embezzling, and that's why we need to make a diss track.
Well, here's the thing. I mean, the thing is let's continue to let's bring it to public awareness. Let's spread propaganda on every Toronto billboard and Montreal billboard portraying Trudeau as the enemy of Canada, and let's see if they still vote Liberal and still are willing to suck him off.
Is it propaganda if it's true?
What about if we brought up that he's a pedophile? Trudeau is a pedophile.
I don't know if that's accurate.
It's alleged that he dated a high school kid while he was a teacher, and that's why he got fired. And he paid the family hush money, like about $2.5 million, or his dad did.
That's alleged. I don't like believing all alleged allegations, honestly.
Or what about the fact? Or how about we have him portray Trudeau as the enemy of Canada and anti-democracy?
I mean, I'd do that. That works. But I think here's the thing though. You don't need to do any of that. You don't need to do any of that because enough people in Canada clearly feel the way you do. It's not just Justin Trudeau's low approval rating. It's the fact that they actually voted with their votes. They voted in enough representatives into your parliament that they are now calling for a vote of no confidence against Justin Trudeau. So,
fun fact, Justin Trudeau's birthday is on Christmas Day as well.
Oh boy, what a gift he is to Canada.
Or maybe he's the Antichrist. He's the opposite of Christ.
No, that's Mr. Beast. All right.
No, that's Klaus Schwab. That's the World Economic Forum. That's the
Sure.
terrorist organization, the World Economic Forum.
Yes, I think you've brought this up before.
Yeah.
But anyways,
And,
Angry Canadian, I do have to run. I have other stories I need to get to. But is there any last statement or point you want to make about Canadian politics that Americans should know before we move on to our next stories?
If Pierre is elected, and he will be, because I know that a lot of people will vote for him, I think it'll be very good for both Canada and America, because Pierre seems to know what he's doing, and I think he and Trump will get along just fine, and they will probably reason with each other better.
Yeah, I completely agree. Dude, as soon as I saw him eating an apple, he won me over. So...
Yeah.
Yeah. But all right,
Yeah.
ladies and gentlemen, that was the Angry Canadian. Check out his YouTube channel. You'll find it if you search the Angry Canadian with no spaces, like America before
always.
the Space Force. Also, he's got a YTP coming out called Welcome to China 4, where he will be going more in depth into both the political and the sexual acts of various members of Canadian Parliament.
Yeah.
So
It's going to be amazing. I might
Sure.
have to upload it on Pornhub.
Get out. Go. Bye.
Just kidding.
See you later. This is too far. Bro. That was ridiculous. Bro, what? Okay. I appreciate him coming onto the stream to talk about, his opinions on various things about politics. But that dude was like, edgelord much? That dude was going off the rails. I'm going to have to censor a lot of what he's had to say there. Hold on, wait. I want to hear what he has to say after the stream.
Anyways, guys, I will see you in the next stream. See you tomorrow.
Okay, he's ending stream. Okay. Man, my goodness. What was that? Oh, man. That was something of a trip. That was something of... that was ridiculous. I hope he had fun with that, though. We're going to have him on the stream again at some point, though. A lot of fun. Definitely worth it. Worth the edgier moments. So, all right. Got a few more topics here I want to breeze through here. I just have to pick my spots because I know I'm actually a little over my what is typically my hard break time. But I know it's the holidays, so I'm trying to cram stuff in and cover enough topics for you guys. One story that I found rather interesting was this story that came out fairly recently from the Wall Street Journal. Now, I haven't had the chance to read this all the way through. I'm actually going to be reacting to a Fox News breakdown of this article here. Actually, you know what? I should probably watch... does Timcast have a segment on this? I should probably watch Timcast instead. I might watch a Timcast reaction to this instead. But this was interesting because this article gained a whole lot of traction. It gained traction to a level that I think was very, very shocking. Ordinarily, when this sort of article would be released, you would think that people wouldn't be paying as much attention to this. And actually, I was proven right because 6 months ago, the Wall Street Journal basically said the same thing. They put out an article saying how Biden's inner circle worked to keep signs of aging under wraps. And CNN has basically put out the exact same story with a different headline and a cooler picture saying how the White House functioned with a diminished Biden in charge. And all of a sudden people are paying attention to this, but they weren't paying attention to this. Now, part of this is, of course, it's a relatively slow news day. So I'm not entirely surprised. But still, this is not great. So hold on. We've got this clip here. This is from Timcast IRL. This is them talking about the whole situation of, the state of Joe Biden's mental health being hidden from the United States of America. Massive scandal. I think that we should probably see a culling in the United States federal government after Trump becomes office over this alone. Like, there are plenty of bad things that have happened, but I think this honestly takes the cake.
The corporate press is such a thin veneer at this point. You can see through it like there's nothing even there. There's a guy standing in front of you, but we're looking right past him, and we can see Joe Biden has been gone for a long time. And the only reason it wasn't a scandal sooner is because, I got to be honest, I think collectively all the Democrats just know they're lying.
Didn't believe Joe.
And I hate this. I've said this before, but this is why Joe Biden needs to retire. This is Stan Lee levels of elder abuse. That he is even still the president of the United States. I know that Kamala Harris would be a worse president than Joe Biden, but still, you can't be abusing an elderly man just because you don't like the policy of the person who would replace him. Joe Biden shouldn't be president. He needs to be eating ice cream with Nancy Pelosi. Okay, give him some chocolate chip. Okay. For all the people mad about the corporate press lying about Joe Biden's mental decline, and all the people who are mad that Joe Biden even allowed to himself to be put inside of a presidential campaign for a 2024 election, you guys also need to be saying, hey, this guy's donezo in the brains. Like, have him retire, replace him with someone else. And isn't there like some sort of amendment that you could invoke or whatever when you say that, like, you know, this person, his mental faculties have been declined? People were saying that they were going to do the same thing on Trump. Joe Biden very clearly fits the criteria for that. So this dude needs to be replaced.
Scarborough?
Peacefully, by the way, peacefully.
Yeah,
So he was the best Biden he's ever.
No, look, I know that Joe Scarborough's a liar. I know that Joe Scarborough knows he's lying.
Yeah.
But I think actually that the average Democrat voter
Yeah.
knows they're lying too. And they're just saying it because they think that's what they're supposed to say.
You think it took up until that?
I disagree. I was watching a stream by Atriarch, and if you're not in the streamer world, you don't watch streamers. It's kind of a world that I observe on YouTube. It's actually kind of what inspired me to start streaming here in this way. Is watching people like Destiny, Hassan, folks like that. But Atriarch was on a stream and he talks about American politics from time to time, and he was talking about how in this debate he literally thought that Joe Biden was completely fine, and he thought that the viral clips of him stumbling over his words or not being able to speak or forgetting things and acting lost and stuff on international stages, that those were all clips that were being selectively edited or presented in order to portray Joe Biden as being worse than he actually was. He thought it was basically fake news from real clips. And then he saw the debate between Donald Trump and Joe Biden, and then he realized the truth. So I think that Tim Pool here doesn't understand or appreciate how easy it is to be fooled by the mainstream media. You know, this dude, Atriarch, I think he's the average Democrat. He probably votes blue every time. All of his friends are either liberals or progressives. And he watches CNN and reads the Financial Times. And that's where he gets all of his news. Well, okay, I should probably, give him a little bit more credit than that. But still, this guy is a follower of the mainstream media. That's where he gets all of his information. And that's led him to the conclusion of, up until that debate, Joe Biden was completely fine. And, you can't act like Democrats know more than what CNN or MSNBC is willing to feed them. I think that you give them too much credit for that, unfortunately. I wish I could say that those folks were more informed than that, but I just don't think that's the case.
Yeah.
Knows they're lying too. And they're just saying it because they think that's what they're supposed to say.
You think it took up until that first debate with Trump for them to be like, for the average voter to be like, whoa, this guy is not right? Or do they know beforehand?
I think
not care.
I think most Democrats knew.
Mm-hmm.
And they're all, look, come on. There's this viral video where it's Ted Cruz, and I can't remember who he's talking to, but he asks about men and women's sports. And he's like, what is the purpose of women's sports? And she says something like, sports are a great way. And he goes, no. What is the point of women's sports? And then he pulls up a study. Like, a study was done in 2017 that found that women's records, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, wait, guys. We as human beings of rational thought do not need scientific studies to tell us men run faster, jump farther, lift more, etc., etc.
True. Who opens the pickle jars? Who opens the pickle jars? What husband have you ever seen go, honey, can you please come here and open up the pickle jar? Except for a gay husband, of course. You don't see that happen. Right? You know what you do see? You see, grown adult women losing sports to high school boys. That's what you do see. You see mothers unable to chase their male children as they're running across the street. That's what you do see. It's the truth.
These people know this too. These Democrats know. They're all just lying because they think that's what they're supposed to say to adhere to their cult. Mm-hmm. So that's the same thing with this. When he says, I'm surprised it wasn't a bigger scandal earlier. Well, yeah, you're in a cult, dude. It's a cult. Yep. They know the truth. They just won't say it.
Yep. I knew a guy who was in a cult, and they believed that you couldn't die. And then when someone did die, they went through all the mental loopholes of how to explain this away. He must have not been a true believer, all these things.
Proves it.
But this is the same thing. You're in a cult, and all of a sudden this person is dead. We've known Joe Biden's dead. I mean, me personally, for 30 years. Maybe just a few years, but like it's been very obvious.
But obviously right now, I think it's hard for me to say this. We have to draw the distinction between we are saying he is figuratively dead.
Oh, I'm saying literally dead.
No.
This is a clone, but go on.
What I mean
dude. Dude, by the way, I make jokes on the stream all the time. It's helpful, I think, especially when Tim Pool is extremely popular, right? There are people who watch him like a hawk. You've got a lot of people like Media's Touch, Right Wing Watch, multiple other folks. I think maybe Mediaite is watching him at this point. A lot of people watching Tim Pool looking for ways to clip him out of context. When you're making jokes like that, it's completely fine, completely fun. I do that a lot, but I think it's helpful. I love the deadpan delivery, right? I love Norm Macdonald's humor, but it's very helpful if you don't want to be taken out of context. It's important to like maybe laugh, chuckle, say you're joking or whatever. Tim Pool laughs, but someone who is going to view this uncharitably or clip this out of bad faith is probably going to be like, no, he seriously thinks that Joe Biden is dead and replaced with a clone.
Hard for me to say this. We have to draw the distinction between we are saying he is figuratively dead.
Oh, I'm saying literally dead.
No.
This is a clone, but go on.
What I mean is, because of the prospect of Joe Biden's old age, that he may be nearing the end of his life, I think it's important to stress we're talking about figuratively is the quote. Because if you said to somebody that Joe Biden has died, they'll be like, well, yeah, I mean, he's gone. But what he's saying is, and again, I have to clarify this because Joe Biden may be not long for this world. I mean, no disrespect.
It's true.
Yeah, it almost makes you feel bad for him.
Yeah.
Because
I'm actually glad that he didn't win the presidency, not because I don't like his policies, but also because it's very plausible that him losing the election, or not losing the election, but him dropping out of the election probably extended his life by like multiple years, if he's going to live for multiple years. I don't think that he would survive the entirety of a second term. I think he would have died 2 years into it. It's too much stress, man. Bro, dude, black don't crack. And we even saw how the presidency aged Barack Obama, okay? So if the presidency can age a black man like Obama in a dramatic way, and just imagine the damage it would do to Joe Biden's mental and physical health. He might end up looking like Jimmy Carter at the end. Like, I'm not even joking.
I lost my dad to brain cancer, and there's no nerve endings in your brain. And so when that's happening, like they're not really aware of it. Like my dad would he'd take like a bottle off the ground, and he hadn't smoked in years, and he'd like try to smoke a water bottle, and he has no clue what's going on. You feel bad for the guy. He's put in this situation.
Richie, I just a quick question. Who's running the country?
Donald Trump.
That's
yeah, actually, that's true.
Anthony Blinken? I don't know.
A bunch of bureaucrats. A bunch of bureaucrats is the answer.
It is wild, actually, though, that Donald Trump, like, he has so much pull, and we're going to talk about this later on a different video, but he has so much pull in Congress and stuff that, like, it does almost feel like he is the president of the United States right now. Like, he's speaking with Zelensky and Putin, trying to negotiate a peace talk between the two nations. Something that I don't think that Joe Biden has done since he's been president, at least not successfully gaining any progress. Meanwhile, Donald Trump has said that he has secured terms of an agreement with Zelensky, and he's working on that with Putin now, saying that Putin is the one who's in the way of getting peace in that area. It's crazy that Donald Trump is already moving the football on certain policies, and he's not even president yet.
But Trump is actually doing more as not president than Biden's doing as president.
Internationally, internationally countries are responding to Donald Trump as if he's in charge now. They're sure the bureaucracies here in the U.S. haven't started. There hasn't been the changes necessary, and there's likely attempts by the Biden administration to do a little bit of hamstringing, like selling off the wall parts and stuff like that. But for the most part, like, the whole country is responding to Donald Trump as if Donald Trump is running the country, because Donald Trump is running the country.
The whole world.
I mean, not literally.
That question, I mean, so if Joe Biden isn't running the country and there are a bunch of allegedly smart people who are, then I went to the border in 2021, right after Biden got elected. They had contracts on that wall that they literally had already paid out, and people were just sitting in trailers while the wall was just rusting in a lot. And you have to ask yourself, if there are smart people who are making those decisions, like, what is their agenda?
I think one thing is that you can have a group of smart people, but if you've also got the person who's in charge of them, whose wits are relatively dim, there is a limit to how far that intelligence can take you, because you've got, unfortunately, you've got an inferior check to that balance. You have Joe Biden, who is, for all intents and purposes, essentially dying, right? His mental faculties are declining. His physical faculties are declining. He is aging like a grandpa. I believe he actually is a grandpa. So that makes sense. But still, this guy's old. He's essentially dying. And he is in charge of running a country. He has people around him. He's got a cabinet and all of that. And they might make certain decisions that are good. They might have certain ideas. But there are certain things you just can't do without the authorization of the President of the United States. So, tough cookies if you've got a smart dude in your cabinet who wants to do something that makes a country better, and the president says no. And when you've got a man that's old and senile like that, you can't necessarily be like, oh, I wonder what's the agenda. Yeah, I wonder what the agenda was of trying to smoke that empty water bottle. There was none, right? I wonder what the agenda was of giving weapons to the Taliban in Afghanistan. There was none. So I think that it makes it difficult to analyze the regime of Joe Biden, just because, you can't really debate the strategy of someone with Alzheimer's, right? It's just not something that can be done. So that has to be taken into consideration when you're doing political analysis in this political era.
Collapse. Yeah, I mean, I don't have any other answer than that.
The Biden admin is selling off the border wall. They are intentionally sabotaging this country. There's for pennies on the dollar.
Yeah, it's intentional at that point.
That's crazy. Well, that's intentional. There might be decisions like that are led by Kamala Harris. I wouldn't be shocked. Wouldn't be shocked. We can't abdicate responsibility from Joe Biden at the end of the day.
Oh, there's no question. Because they're not making money. If it was like we're at a budget shortfall, let's sell this, they wouldn't just be giving it away. They're ripping apart the material. Trump talked about this in a press conference. He said, "Please, Biden, stop doing this."
This is reminiscent, and like, I'm not trying to make allusions to the worst people of the 20th century, and I'm not saying the Democrats are like the Nazis, but when you have a party that clearly has lost the plot by doubling down on the bad things that they're doing, as opposed to doing good things. Like when the Nazis knew that they could either stop killing Jews and hopefully help their position in the war, they doubled down on killing Jews. So that's kind of what Biden is doing. It's like he could stop doing things that hurt the country, and try and help with the transition, but instead he's decided to double down on doing things that hurt the country.
His whole career has been for evil. Like that's why I don't feel sympathy for him, right? Like he has been a career demon for decades, and I feel no sympathy for him at all. I think it's it's sad when it's old people outside of this guy, but this guy has look what he just granted clemency.
I don't like this. I don't like this line of thought, this line of thinking. I think that you still have to recognize that there's humanity in people who have political policies that are different than you. Right? I'm not of the persuasion to say that, oh, well, I know that elder abuse isn't great. I know it's pretty bad. It's a crappy thing to do. But like, Joe Biden's such a bad politician, He's done so much harm to the country. Like, no, dude. No. Elder abuse is bad. End of story. Don't try to justify it by saying, oh, he's been such a bad politician. He's caused so much harm. Like, bro, stop it. This sort of dialogue is going to get you into the place where you're justifying people doing bad things to your political enemies, which itself is a slippery slope that could eventually lead to supporting violence wholesale against your political enemies, which is not a place that we want to get to. Not saying that that's what you support, not even saying that that's what you're trying to do, but I'm saying that is the natural result of this rhetoric that you're pushing right here.
To a judge who was selling kids
or the dude with kitty porn. Kitty, sorry. Well, I guess I'm not allowed to say. Well, the dude with the
the Chinese. Yes, dude,
tens of thousands. Yeah, the diddler.
So, and that's either Biden doing it. I don't think it is. I think it's a network of people behind Biden doing these things. But he has had a career of doing this.
Well, there's a big story that there's this Chinese national who had all these images of extreme child torture. And 47,000, and he gets commuted. His sentence commuted, and he gets deported along with 2 others. They say this was part of a prisoner exchange, which will bring back wrongly imprisoned Americans. And my attitude was kind of like, man, I don't know. Let me ask you guys this question: if you were, I'll say this: if I was imprisoned in China, and the federal government said, "Tim, we're gonna get you out, and we have to free this guy to do it," I'd be like, "No, I'm staying right here." Like, I don't know. What do you think? Would you I don't know if that trade makes sense. That person is a demon who committed. This is a guy with 47,000 images of child torture. Okay, and I'm saying that I'm just gonna leave it at that. I don't know, man. I can't speak for the individual who was wrongly imprisoned in China, but if it were me, I'd be like, I am not accepting that.
Well, why do the Chinese want him is the question. So, like, what kind
of... Yo, that's a good question. Like, a Xi Jinping, like, bro, man, we're just not doing a good enough job of torturing these black people and these Uyghurs. We need the diddler. We need the child torturer. We need this man to come home so that we can do our job right as people who oppress and torture and do other terrible things to black people and to Uyghurs. A diddler, return to the homeland. Your motherland is calling.
kind of compromising information does that guy have on maybe American citizens or something? Like, why do the Chinese want this guy with those kind of crimes back when they have a social credit system over there?
But here's the question for you guys: if you were asked, you're wrongly imprisoned in insert country, we can free you, but we have to release that guy to do it, would you be like, yeah, do it, I'm gonna come home? Or would you be like, no,
I'm getting out and I'm hunting him down?
You can ask Sam tomorrow because he was in Syrian prison, so maybe he'll have a good answer
for
that.
That's a good question.
Thanks for checking out.
All right, nice. Good clip. Very interesting. The crazy thing to me is how much the media is pretending that this wasn't an issue. And now all of a sudden they're acting like this is like breaking news when this is something that a lot of people on the right knew for a long time. The left lied about it, so a lot of people on the left don't know. But also, even the Wall Street Journal was exposing this months ago, and people were ignoring the story and acting like it didn't even exist. So, yeah, not a big fan of the duplicitous way that Joe Biden's decline is being portrayed. However, I do appreciate the fact that the media is actually acknowledging it for once. So there is a slight W there on that front. Let's see. All right, time for the last two segments here. I'm going to try to breeze through these. I'm not going to, miss important things, but I do want to sort of not waste any time here, just because I know that it's starting to get late. All right, so last year I did a segment called Not the Top 10 Seasons of Television of 2023, as well as Not the Top 10 Movies of 2023, I believe. This year, I'm going to name it a little bit different. I'm going to call it My Top Watches of the Year. Just because I think that the titling just is a little confusing. It might throw some people off. But then I realized that Carson Runquist actually made a video kind of similar to the videos I made last year. And he titled it that way. And I was like, you know what? This might give people a better idea of what it is I'm actually doing with my reviews. So, yeah, let us go ahead and kick things off with, hold on, let's see here. Let's go ahead and kick things off. Hold on, wait a second. There we go. All right. Let's go ahead and kick things off with movie number 10 on my top 10 list. We have Godzilla -1. I gave this movie a 9 out of 10. I missed the theatrical run last year, so I went to go see it this year in the theatrical re-release because I think for the 1 year anniversary or 50th anniversary of the original Godzilla film, one of the two, I can't remember, they put this movie back into theaters, and man, it was fun. This was the sort of movie that sort of felt like a classic Hollywood film, like a classic Hollywood blockbuster, in the sense of it had a lot of like positivity and like positive messaging about people coming together and working together to help each other in trying times, and also overcoming difficult odds to accomplish a nearly or an apparently insurmountable goal. I really, really appreciated the vibes of this movie. This felt like the perfect American blockbuster, despite this being a Japanese film created in Japan. A very great film. This certainly deserved to be re-released. If you haven't seen this movie and you like monster movies, definitely check this one out. I will say that it's not cartoonish in the way that a lot of the American Godzilla movies are cartoonish. So, if you come into this movie looking for just a bunch of ridiculous Godzilla lasering skyscraper scenes, you're not going to be delivered on that exactly. Like, there is some of that in here, but it's not anywhere near the scale of the Lionsgate films. So you might want to go there for that sort of thing. Of course, if we're going to go there for that sort of thing, you're not really necessarily picky, I think, of the quality of the films you consume. So you'll be happy with that as well. I don't need to sit here and tell you how great this movie is, because you probably won't care. You just want to see explosions. Moving on here to number 9, we have Civil War. Now, when it comes to my favorite movies of the year, this probably is higher up, but when it comes to best movies of the year, this is going to have to settle for being number 9. Now, while I think this movie should have been called Getty Images, not Civil War, I think this is still a fantastic film, and it does a great job of using a road trip to show how a civil war would affect the United States. And there are a little bit of hints and glimpses here and there as to what sort of events could cause a civil war as well. I think the great thing about this movie too is I think it's a great movie to show people who want a civil war, because this shows the brutality of what that will be, and also how the United States will never become as united as they are right now under civil war. You're gonna have multiple factions all across the country fighting for territory and fighting for authority. It's gonna be a big, huge mess. And one thing this movie doesn't wrestle with, which I think it should, is that, and I know I'm political, so I'm getting more into political commentary here, but is that if a civil war happens, other countries are going to start pouncing in and trying to exert their dominance over us as well. If they got into that, man, this movie would be incredibly dark. But no, they decide to spare us that and instead show us burning and dying bodies. So great movie, heavy to watch. If you've watched any of the footage from like the Black Lives Matter riots and stuff, a lot of stuff is going to be very, very familiar in this film. It's going to feel like you're watching a parallel universe, honestly. If you follow the news at all, this is going to feel frighteningly like things that we see every few years or so. The next movie, number 8, is I Saw the TV Glow. I also rated this number 9. This, honestly, as soon as I saw it, became one of my favorite movies of all time. I think that this movie does a fantastic job of showcasing identity issues and what it's like to sort of be in a very like isolated or sheltered environment, and then trying to figure out who you are as sort of a result of that. Now, you guys know that I'm right wing, so one would not necessarily call me pro-trans, but I will say that, you know, despite this film being an allegory for the trans experience, and despite the creator of this movie actually being a trans woman, this film is still great, and this allegory is broad enough to apply to multiple forms of identity issues, not just gender dysphoria as well, but you know, your personality, your likes, your dislikes, your fashion choices, all of those things I think are sort of addressed, I guess, if that's the right word to use, by this movie, at least topically. So if you're looking for a movie kind of about like exploring identity in a multifaceted way that's not necessarily all that specific, highly recommend this movie. Fantastic watch. Depending on how close you are to experiencing some of these issues, this might be a very heavy movie for you to watch. So I do want to warn you there, is because, you know, I saw the TV Glow subreddit, and I see many people being like, oh, I saw this movie and it wrecked me. So, you know, if you don't want to see a movie that might cause a strong emotional response from you, and these are issues that you've dealt with in the past, I might not recommend you watch this, but, you know, if you think you can handle it, definitely recommend it, because it's a fantastic movie. It's criminally underrated. I really wish more people were talking about this movie. All right, here we have The Line, which also was criminally underrated. I also gave this a 9 out of 10. It's shocking that I didn't see more people talking about this. I've been lobbying for Carson Rehnquist to discuss this movie, just because this seems like the type of movie that would be in his wheelhouse. As much as Barbie was a movie that was by a woman for women, this feels like a movie that was by men for a man, and it sort of trades the Barbie dream house for a frat house, kind of showcasing sort of the dangers of allowing unbridled, immature masculinity to run wild. And maybe masculinity isn't the right word, but if you've ever heard the story that if you put a lot of boys together, that they will start abusing each other, this movie showcases this fantastically. Now, I will say that I've never been in a frat, never participated in frat culture. I will say I went to college and I was part of a bro unit. I went to a Christian university, so they didn't tolerate frats and stuff like that. But the fun aspects of this movie, I've certainly experienced some fun things like that. You know, the exaggerated shouting in the halls, shouting chug, chug, chug while you're drinking a beverage. Now, we didn't drink alcoholic beverages, but stuff like that. Having pizza parties and things, those are things that we all indulged in. But there are darker things that take place here that I'm not going to necessarily discuss, but they're just things to be observed if you choose to watch this film that we did not engage in. And to a certain point, this movie made me glad, actually, that I went to a Christian college and not a secular college, because of a culture like this is extremely destructive, and this film showcased why. It's also kind of interesting because I think one of the main things about this film that it shows is what happens when you don't have an authority figure in these individuals' lives that helps them mature, especially considering the fact that these people, for the most part, they're already basically abused in their, maybe not abused, but they don't have healthy home lives. So they don't have healthy home lives, and they go to college and they foster an unhealthy culture there. Which part of that is just because that's all that they know. And part of that is that they're just hurting others to distract themselves from the pain that they're feeling in their own personal life. So great movie, fantastic movie. If you're looking around and being like, man, Barbie was a movie that addresses femininity and from a feminist lens. I really want to see a movie that sort of addresses masculinity and stuff. The Line, I think, is a perfect movie for you. Definitely go check it out. It's criminally underrated, and also, to put a cherry on top, it's the last on-screen appearance of Angus Cloud. It's the last thing that was filmed before his death, and the last thing to be released as well. So if you're a fan of Angus Cloud or Euphoria, then definitely check out this movie. Also, number 6 is The Wild Robot. This is a fantastic film. It's an allegory about something that I think if I told you, it'd be a spoiler, but fantastic fantastic movie. It's very difficult for me to talk about this movie without giving spoilers, surprisingly. But I will say the cast is incredible. I think it's a shame. I saw a video that brought this up, how a lot of animated movies don't have voice actors now. They have celebrity actors. And we actually kind of see this here with the cast. We've got Lupita Nyong'o, Pedro Pascal, Kit Connor, who else? Ving Rhames, Mark Hamill. A lot of famous faces here using their voices instead. I think I don't know if I want to say it's a shame, because especially Pedro Pascal did an incredible job with the voice acting in this film. Lupita Nyong'o as well. The both of them are completely unrecognizable, and I think that shows how great they are at voice acting. But I will say, it's a shame that the market for voice acting has shrunk, because I would have liked to see more voice actors and voice actresses in this movie. I know that I sort of like to apply the meme of like everywhere I see his face to what's the name of that famous voice actress? I forget. She was in Powerpuff Girls and a bunch of things. But I would rather see like a very famous voice actress be cast in movies like this rather than like a bunch of live action movie stars. That's just my personal take. Still a great movie. I think that it's not entirely complex, which is why it's so low on this list, but still tells a fantastic story. I do love this movie. Number 5 is a movie called American Fiction. This is an incredible film. It's a great original story about sort of what happens when you're an educated black man trying to be recognized for what you do, but then people who are not black are like, well, the things that you're doing, you don't seem that black. And it tells this through the lens of, storytelling. This guy is a writer. He writes books, and people want a black book from him. He has trouble selling some of his books because they don't seem black enough. And so in a fit of rage, he decides to write a satirical black story filled with black stereotypes and negative depictions of black men and black women. And that book goes gangbusters. And so he sort of puts up this facade of being this criminal who can't say his real name because he's on the run from the law, which itself is hilarious, going around to sell this book while he himself was conflicted about how long should he take this parody, right? At what point is this going too far and actually perpetuating the exact same thing that he is sort of trying to decry and wrote the entire story in a fit of rage over? So great movie. If you've ever read the article, A Black Professor Trapped in an Anti-Racist Hell, the intro to this movie feels a lot like it was ripped right from the pages of that newspaper article, which is fascinating. One of my favorite opening scenes of all time. Absolutely love it. Also, I will say that what was I gonna say? I lost my train of thought there. But anyways, great movie. Do like it. Do appreciate it. You should, especially as a black dude who, based on the things I engage with and things, there are certainly people who would say that I'm not black enough. So especially as someone of that ilk as well, really, really, really do like the movie American Fiction. Highly recommend watching it if you have not engaged with this film yet. We also have this movie. This is number 4. This is The Iron Claw. I got the Blu-ray for this. No, it's actually a 4K digibook, I want to say, from France. Fantastic film. Amazing. Very, very emotional. I will say that like at some points emotionally, this does feel like just getting hit in the face with a ton of bricks over and over again. but that's just the nature of the tragedy of this story. If you know what happened to this family, then I don't need to spell it out for you. And if you don't know, then it's a spoiler. But this movie tells it in a way that even though it's extremely, extremely emotional, even then they're pulling punches, and they intentionally choose to leave out a family member because of that punch that they do decide to pull. Fantastically shot. The acting is incredible. Zac Efron, this should turn around Zac Efron's career in the same way that 13 Hours turned around the acting career of that one dude from The Office. I forget his name. John Krasinski. This is a fantastic film, well acted, nearly perfect, I would say, which is why I rated it a 9 out of 10. It's also why this is the last movie on this list that I rated a 9 out of 10, I want to say, other than the third one. It's the same. No, not quite right. This is the next to last movie on this list that I rated a 9 out of 10, with the exception of one other movie, just because this movie was so fantastic. Coming up in third place, we're up to the top 3, is Anatomy of the Fall. Fantastic movie. Absolutely amazing, delicious, and delectable. Now, in a world where everyone seems to be trying to create Agatha Christie mysteries, Justine Triet here decides to make a Justine Triet mystery by, rather than doing a very subjective or sort of behind the scenes style of a mystery where you go back and show who actually killed the person, and then you conclusively determine who did or didn't do it. Instead, this movie sort of goes in depth on what was the nature of the relationship that would have led to this even happening in the first place. And in the end, I know this is a slight spoiler, but you don't actually know for sure who actually killed the husband. Now, you can come up with your own theories. Everyone has their own opinions, but at the end of the day, it's more about what it's like to go through one of these, and it's a more objective look at this rather than an omniscient view that is provided to us by the likes of Agatha Christie. Not so much Sherlock Holmes, because they don't do like flashbacks and things that sort of take you back to the actual murder itself. But still, fantastic movie. I can barely recommend it enough. If I could recommend it a little bit more, then I would give it 10 stars rather than 9. But yeah. Now we have the final 2 movies on my list. The number 2 movie that I saw for the first time this year is Dune Part 2. Fantastic movie. This was, in my opinion, perfect, because I don't think there's a single thing that they could have done to make this movie better. The pacing was fantastic. The storytelling was fantastic. The acting was impeccable. The visually, absolutely stunning. I saw it in standard. I saw it in IMAX. It is amazing in both presentations. I'm just really waiting for that third movie so that we can have an amazing trilogy to just watch back to back to back over and over and over again. Bro, I'm going to tell my kids this was the original trilogy. This is how good this movie was. Bro, forget Star Wars. Dune is where it's at. This movie is amazing. I highly recommend you watch both Dune Part 1 as well as Dune Part 2, because both movies are incredible. Now, the last movie in the top 10 movies I saw for the first time in 2024 list is Interstellar. Believe it or not, I had not seen this movie before, but I chose to see it during the IMAX theatrical re-release, and this movie knocked my socks off. Now, is this my favorite Christopher Nolan movie? No, I think I like Tenet a little bit better, but I have to admit this movie is a lot better than Tenet. This movie deals with the themes of ultimately love, but also weighing the risks when it comes to determining what to do or not to do in a do or die scenario. And it explores in a very creative way. I think it's pseudoscientific, but it's pseudoscientific in a way that's believable, right? Like, only Christopher Nolan can, make people with a straight face talk about the fifth dimension, and then you are thinking about the fifth dimension, not understanding it, and then you think you're the dumb one, right? Not the fictional scientists talking about something that's not actually real. Amazing movie, and very, very beautiful as well. Like, I was watching this movie and I was like, I understand why they showed this in a space museum, right? Like, it's amazing. And like the way that some of the stuff in space is shot, it actually felt very relaxing, despite this movie being one fraught with tension and stress. Something about many of the shots of them just floating about in space just felt like I myself was taking a little vacation. Amazing movie. If you haven't seen this movie, you absolutely must. I think that IMAX theatrical re-release is concluded, but you can still buy this on Blu-ray or watch it on iTunes or streaming services or whatever. I highly suggest you go do that. Incredible film. All right, so those are the top 10 movies that I saw in 2024. I'd like to know what were your top 10 movies that you saw for the first time in 2024. If there are any movies that I did not see in 2024 that you think I should watch in 2025, leave them down in the comment section below. I will say, generally, I avoid things that have nudity in them. So if you're going to say something like Challengers or Poor Things, like, you're probably right. Those are probably fantastic movies, but I just ain't going to watch them. Sorry. But I still appreciate your recommendations nonetheless. So looking forward to hearing all of those in the comments below. All right, we've got the last segment here. All right, so last year I started a little tradition on the channel where I talk about the things that were my top 10 first watches of 2023 in both television seasons as well as movies. And I decided to change how I named this segment because last year I called it the not top 10 seasons of television or the not top 10 movies of 2023. But I think the way I named those episodes or those videos was a little bit confusing. And also I noticed that Carson Runquist made a very similar video. He didn't include movies that he saw that were new, but he included movies that he saw for the first time in his video. And I think that by titling my video the way that I'm titling it, it's a little bit more clear exactly what this top 10 list is, because you might be looking back at the movie video and be like, how are you going to put Interstellar in your top 10 movies of 2024 list? So if you're a little bit curious as to that, that's why. But without further ado, because I don't have much ado to do, here we go. Starting things off with number 10, Rick and Morty Season 7. I think this was a fantastic season. I gave this an 8 out of 10. No, I think some people were a little bit upset with how some of the things were done. But still, there were certain episodes that I think were all-time best episodes of the series. That's a Morte incredible. I still think about that every single day. Fear No Mort was incredible as well. I think Mort Ragnarok was also good. There are many episodes here like Air Force One that just has some very, very fun stuff here. Some funny jokes. I think the opening episode was a little bit weak. Not bad, but just a little bit weak. But after that, I think the episode sort of starts to really get back into its stride. I know this is the first season that doesn't have Justin Roiland involved in the voices, but this still works. This still works. The subs, Ian Cardoni as Rick Sanchez and Harry Belden as Morty Smith, definitely do a great job covering for Justin Roiland's absence. And also, I think Dan Harmon's writing certainly continues the spirit of the prior seasons. Very, very, very excited for season 8, which unfortunately has not yet aired. I'm very much looking forward to that. But yeah, if this is what Rick and Morty is going to be like moving forward, I think they're definitely on the right track. All right, moving on to season 9, The Defenders. Season 1, which is basically the entire series, I gave this an 8 out of 10. Now, this was part of me not rewatching. This is part of me watching the entirety of the Netflix Marvel television series because I had never seen them before, and I was expecting some of the characters in the Marvel Netflix series to show up in Deadpool Wolverine. And this series was actually pretty good. There were many people who didn't really like this series. This series gets a lot of hate. Like here we got the top review here, which is 5 out of 10. There were other negative reviews that this series got, but I think this series actually worked pretty well. Now, maybe some people watch this in a vacuum, but I think that the way that they built up to this series, as well as sort of covering to make it so that if you didn't watch this series, you're not missing out if you continue to watch the other series and skip this one for whatever reason. That was actually a little bit creative as well. But they did a great job of building on the character development for a lot of these characters, because these are the type of people who don't really like to work with a lot of others. And they are initially distrustful. So it sort of like boxed them in and forced them to learn how to work together as a team. This is one series from the Marvel Netflix shows I really hope that they pick up. I know that some people want Jessica Jones and Luke Cage and Iron Fist to come back, but that's a lot of shows for Disney to produce. And I don't really trust that they would be able to take care of these characters properly if they stretch themselves thin like that. But with Marvel's The Defenders, you can bring back all these characters in a way that feels natural, but also doesn't stretch Disney too thin and makes them create bad stuff like we've seen in a lot of the post-Endgame movies. So good series, extremely underrated. If you have skipped this for whatever reason while watching Daredevil or the other Marvel Netflix shows, I definitely recommend circling back and watching this. It's fantastic. And here we have season 2 of Falling Skies. I recently started picking Falling Skies back up. It's one of the shows I started watching when I was younger, but I never finished it. I do have the entire box set down behind me. So I decided to delve back into the series, and I picked up season 2. Season 2 is a massive step up from season 1. It's one of the biggest improvements from one season to another that I've ever seen in a television show. I was extremely impressed. Had a lot of fun watching this. They did a great job of sort of like showing the, Captain Daniels, more of his backstory, showing his flaws and stuff and how he's growing through them. Also shows kind of what Mason and his crew plan on doing long term when it comes to establishing a new life for themselves and a new way of living with the existence of these skitters. I think it does it in a way that's balanced. Very, very good season. I recommend watching the show if you have not checked it out already. Now, moving into the 9 out of 10s territory, we have season 8 of 24. Now, a lot of people didn't like these later seasons of 24, but I actually think this was fine. I thought this was pretty good. I think the ending was certainly fitting as well. But yeah, no, they did a good job of bringing out old characters without overdoing it. I think that the mole story maybe got a little bit convoluted with the whole CTU thing, but overall was very well executed. This show reminded me how much broadcast television sometimes can feel like prestige TV. Like, I know that it lost a little bit of its prestige veneer that it had in some of the middle seasons, but bro, this series still has it. Great series. Loved this season. They did a great job with it. I think that I'm actually on the side of the 24 fans with Live Another Day. That show was pretty subpar. That season was pretty subpar. It had some good moments, but it was pretty subpar. But this season was fantastic. High Octane gives you all the stuff that you need from 24. If you're looking for quintessential 24, this doesn't stray away from it too much. Great season. If you are watching 24 and you've heard negative reviews of the later seasons, I recommend still watching this if you have the time. I know there's a lot of episodes to watch, 24 episodes per season, but in my opinion, it's worth it if you got the time. So definitely check it out. Here we have Will Trent Season 2. Will Trent Season 2 was pretty good. I will say that it doesn't have as much of the, artsy or austere feeling of Season 1, but it still definitely works. And the writing was fantastic. They did a great job of weaving a continuous story arc or character arc for Will Trent. It wasn't like they were weaving a story per se for Will Trent in the entirety of season 2 in the same way that they did in season 1. But, for what they gave him, they did a fantastic job. If you like seeing a show that's well shot, but also still on broadcast television for some reason, definitely recommend checking out this show, Will Trent Season 2. Also, this is the type of show that ends its seasons well. So, ABC, I've known them to kill off great shows before. They canceled Designated Survivor. They canceled, Whiskey Cavalier as well. They might cancel this show too, I don't know. But if they do, don't be alarmed. The seasons end well, so it's not going to be ending on a cliffhanger or anything. Now, for the number 5 season of television that I've seen this year, we have Daredevil Season 2. Now, this season was a season that introduced multiple characters. We've got Elektra, we've got the Punisher. This was really good build up into both the Punisher Season 1 as well as the Defenders series, which was also fantastic. Not as good as this, but this was pretty good. The tension that is building between all of the people who are in the law firm in which Matt Murdock works is really developed in an extremely plausible way, in a way that almost is gut-wrenching. If you feel a lot for the characters, this will be a very emotional watch for you. But this is great. It also kind of shows, At what point do you have to bend your own rules in order to fight people who are seemingly above the law? This deals with that dilemma very, very heavily, I would say, especially with the inclusion of the Punisher. One thing that's kind of interesting is, you know how you watch some broadcast shows, it feels like they have a story and they know that story isn't enough to stretch across the entire series, so they tell you a different story in the second half. You sort of get the feeling of that with this series, but it's in a good way. It's in a good way because in some seasons of Netflix Marvel shows, they sort of take one story and they stretch it out to the entire series or season in a way that just feels slow and laborious to a certain extent. But they didn't do that here. I think it was a very wise decision. I'm glad that they told the story the way that they did. Number 4, we have Mr. and Mrs. Smith. This was very, very hyped when it came out, but I don't hear many people talk about this after the fact. This is an incredible miniseries. I'm calling this a miniseries just because I don't think it's sure that the season is going to be the series is going to be returning for a second season. But even if it doesn't, amazing. This shows a lot about not just what it's like to be in a relationship, but additionally what happens when you mix kind of like being in a relationship with being secret agents and sort of the trials and tribulations that come with that. I think it's a little bit cartoonish and not entirely accurate to what the skill set of people at the level of spies that they are would be like. But I think it still works because it all fits into the context of the universe that Donald Glover chose to craft here with this series. So very, very great. It's also very, very short. Like, the episodes I don't think are entirely long. How long is each episode? Some of them are 45 minutes long. Some of them are an hour long. And you've only got 8 episodes. So not a crazy amount of television to watch there. You can probably binge it in a couple days if you got poor time management. So if you got bad time management, you want to watch something in a day, I don't have much better recommendations for you than this. For number 3, we've got Jessica Jones Season 1. I will say that Jessica Jones is one of my favorite characters from the Marvel Netflix shows. I think that this series, unfortunately, does go downhill in latter seasons more than the other shows do. But still, this season was a lot of fun to watch. The interplay between Trish and Jessica Jones was fantastic to observe. Kristen Ritter acted her acted her eyes off. I guess, what do you say? Acting her what? I don't even know what you would say. But she acted in a way that knocked my socks off. It was fantastic. She really melded into the role. Also, Carrie-Anne Moss, very, very impactful in this role as well. I think that she does a better job with her acting later on in the series. Because she's just given more stuff to do and she carries that weight extremely well, playing as Jerry Hogarth. But still, fantastic acting, an amazing cast. David Tennant is fantastic as Kilgrave. Just one of the greatest villains, I think, of Marvel television. And this is spanning ABC, Disney, all of that. I think that he actually might be the best villain in I don't know. Kingpin is pretty good, but Kilgrave gives him a run for his money. Like, man, bro, crazy. Sorry, I'm just speechless just because of how good of a villain he is. If you like superhero media and you like sort of darker stories about characters who have troubled pasts or upbringings, like Mr. Robot, I think that Jessica Jones is the type of show that you would enjoy. Highly recommend that. And we are getting here to the top 2. The number 2 season television that I observed for the first time this year is Marvel's Daredevil. Marvel's Daredevil Season 3. Great season here. This sort of takes in many themes from the second season, brings them full circle. It also brings in a new villain for Daredevil to fight. I will say I wish he was in more episodes in the season because of how formidable he was. I would like to see him in Daredevil Born Again. But still, this was an incredible season of Daredevil. This was basically about as perfect as you can get when it comes to a season of superhero television. It literally does not get better than this. So if you want to see superhero television done well, I highly recommend Marvel's Daredevil and just breeze through at least seasons 1 through 3, if not the entirety of the other Marvel Netflix shows, or at least Defenders, because it adds more context for season 3. So, but great season of television, amazing. There are many people who are like, oh, this Marvel movie is my favorite movie, like blah, blah, blah. I might roll my eyes to a certain extent. But when it comes to television, if you tell me that Daredevil's your favorite show, bro, I'm not judging, bro. This is like one of the best adaptations of a cartoon character into the live action form. This is amazing. And last but not least, we have the number one season of television that I observed over the past year in 2024. And I'd say that would be Marvel's The Punisher season 1. And I will say that this season does have some edgier content that I did not necessarily appreciate. In general, this was amazing and actually felt more along the lines of something like 24 than something along the lines of Daredevil or Iron Fist. But in sort of along those lines, I like how it embraces him not being a superhero and instead gives him some mortal enemies. He's fighting corruption here and he's not fighting crazy superheroes. I do like that about this. I think that they do this with the entire series. But I like how they commit to that as well, because it's Marvel. So you sort of would expect him to face off against some sort of like superpowered being or whatever. But no, this is just a straight up series about fighting corruption, as well as like the effects that PTSD has on members of the military, because him having PTSD is a major reason that he does what he does, especially when he sort of feels like, well, I did all these bad things. Were they even justified? Was it even worth it? And then him sort of wrestling with that sort of makes him upset. And that upset feeling that he has, that anger, that frustration, causes him to do some very interesting things. You'll just have to watch this series to find out. But yeah, if you don't like superhero media, but you do like shows about PTSD, about mental health, about veterans, and about like fighting terrorists and fighting for your country, even when that means going against your country, like, Captain America, the Winter Soldier vibes, this is probably the series for you, especially if you're looking for more stuff like Captain America, the Winter Soldier, because this is basically Captain America, the Winter Soldier without with PTSD, without superpowers. That might be exaggerating a little bit, but very, very similar themes, very, very similar genre, much, much grittier, of course, but fantastic season. But anyways, those are the top 10 seasons of television that I watched for the first time in 2024. I'm already building up my list of things I'm going to be watching in 2025. I'm already working on that list now. But for those of you who have already compiled your lists of what you liked and didn't like from 2024 when it comes to television, I'd like to see your recommendations in the comments down below. I will say that generally I avoid things that have like, nudity and edgy scenes like that and stuff in them. So, there are certain things that have come out that people might recommend. Like, what is it now? Like Dune Prophecy or whatever. Be like, oh, go watch the series. Well, sadly, no. Probably not going to check it out, but I do still appreciate recommendations down in the comments. So if you have them for me, send them my way. I am most certainly going to read them. But anyways, yeah, I think that sort of covers everything. Now, unfortunately, I made a mistake of barely filling up my glass of water, so my throat is hurting right now. Yeah, I think my voice is probably kind of out of whack too. So I'm going to head out. This is my final stream of the year. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I tried to balance like the fun with the serious as well, covering news stories, but also talking about shows and movies and doing reviews and stuff. So hope you guys enjoyed it. I will be back in 2025. We're talking more about what my schedule is going to be looking like in 2025 as well in the coming months. So stay tuned for that, because you guys might be surprised about what is coming in the future. But yeah, in the meantime, thanks everyone for tuning in. I really, really, really do appreciate you guys. Whether you're on the live channel, you subscribe, you are a passerby on the Non-WWE Highlights channel every once in a while, and you leave comments. I've been seeing some comments on recent videos. I really appreciate that. Thanks everyone for tuning in. If you guys want to influence what I talk about on the streams, especially as I start streaming more aggressively and more frequently next year, click on the link down below. I've got a Discord server where you can hop on the stream and collab. Right, earlier today we had official Mike or the Angry Canadian hop on the stream to talk about politics. But if you want to talk about things that are a little bit more goofy, right? You got like a meme or whatever you want to show me, or show you want to talk about, internet drama you want to discuss, please be my guest. Hop onto the stream. I would love to have you. I'm always open to suggestions on things to talk about and react to and cover on the streams. Anytime, whenever you wish. But anyways, thanks so much for tuning in. I appreciate you guys. I hope you guys have a wonderful, happy holiday season. Great Christmas, Merry Christmas. And also have a fantastic New Year's as well. Peace out, y'all. I will see you guys in 2025, Lord willing.
Oops, Picasso, you made my heart grow. A lesson I learned from the seed is it starts slow. Trust me, you gon' see the tree if you look close. Don't you know having faith is a substance of things that you don't see? But trust me, you gon' see the fruits of your labor. Trust in the king and my focus on laser. Walking in purpose, I'm blessing on favor. I tried to go fall in love with the paper. Till you show me love that will never waver. No one can give me the food that you can't